and this is your News of the Week for the week of October 10th to October 16th, 2021. I'm Akasha Cody, and let's get right into the headlines. We begin with the fact that an FDA panel, the Vaccine Advisory Committee, has officially recommended the Moderna COVID-19 booster vaccine dose. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's approved. The real head honcho who decides whether to approve it or not actually goes to the director of the FDA. But here at this Vaccine Advisory Committee, they've decided to recommend this Moderna booster vaccine dose to the emergency use authorization. Now, if this Moderna booster vaccine dose does make it through the process, then it will become the second vaccine booster dose to officially be approved for an emergency use authorization. The first one being, of course, the Pfizer booster dose. Now, that's what's going on with the FDA. We'll take a look at some of the other stories, and then we'll get into the real depth. So we begin with the fact that the Nobel Economic Sciences Prize, the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, is the only one that wasn't awarded by the last time we were doing the News of the Week, so I thought it would be fitting to address it now. Later, now we have the fact that the Scripps National Spelling Bee, for the first time in 27 years, is not going to be hosting on ESPN. It won't be broadcast live on ESPN. Instead, it'll be broadcast on two of Scripps' own networks. Stay tuned for what these channels might be. And then we have the fact that just a week after a mosque bombing in Kunduz, northern Afghanistan, left anywhere from 50 to over 100 people dead, another bombing at another mosque committed by the same terrorist organization occurred, this time in the second largest city in Afghanistan, Kandahar, and this one killed another 50 people. More information on that in just a little bit amount of time, but before that we'll take a look at our last story of the week, COVID-19 and the new Merck anti-COVID-19 pill. This could be breaking news, and it could change the whole landscape of COVID-19 if and only if the FDA officially approves it. Now, that's what's going on with the news of the week, so let's take a look in a bit further. And we begin with the FDA, where the Vaccine Advisory Committee, a panel devoted to the vaccines and approving and recommending them for various FDA programs, this Vaccine Advisory Committee has officially announced its recommendation of the Moderna vaccine booster dose to the emergency use authorization. Now, currently, the Moderna vaccine is going to be going for the EUA, and if the FDA officially approves it, then this will become the second vaccine booster dose of COVID-19 to officially be included and to officially be approved as an emergency use authorization by the FDA. The first one, of course, being the Pfizer Vaccine booster dose for COVID-19. Now, as this is going on right now, this Moderna vaccine booster dose is actually half the size, half the quantity of the original Moderna vaccine doses, compared to the Pfizer one, which is actually the same size. So the Moderna new vaccine dose had a little bit of consideration to do by the Vaccine Advisory Committee. And it's not just that either. Apparently, there have been several rare cases of myocarditis in several people who have gotten the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. Some have even died from it. And although it is incredibly rare, it's still a very important issue to talk about, because although the probability is small, the chances of it actually happening and the fact that it's that dangerous just makes it too big of a risk to just ignore. So instead, the Vaccine Advisory Committee took into account these cases of myocarditis, and eventually they decided that it really wasn't all too major and that hopefully not much was going to happen during this third dose. So in that case, they just passed it along, and so the Vaccine Advisory Committee officially has gone with the Moderna vaccine. Now, the advisory committee isn't in charge of the FDA's vaccine program or the EUA. The real people who are going to do it and the real head honcho who decides what to approve and what not to and what to do the emergency use authorization and what not to is, of course, just the director of the FDA. Now, this is what's going on, but you might be wondering, for those of you who have gotten the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you might be wondering, well, what about J&J? And, well, you are in good luck because the Moderna and J&J vaccines will both be discussed at a meeting by the CDC to be convened on October 20th and 21st, 2021. You may recall that just several weeks ago, the CDC had a discussion on the Pfizer vaccine, in which they listed a series of conditions for those who can take currently the Pfizer vaccine booster dose and those who can't. Namely, either A, if you are 65 or above, B, if you have any underlying health conditions, or C, if you are a member of the healthcare force. So if you're a healthcare worker, then you will be eligible. So if you are either of these three, either you are 65 and above, have underlying medical conditions, or are a member of the healthcare force, then you are eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. Otherwise, not yet, and you'll have to wait for just a bit. Now, that's what's going on with the Pfizer vaccine, and that's probably going to be similar recommendations given out to the Moderna and to J&J as well. So that's going to be very important, and we'll take a look at that next week when it happens on October 20th and 21st. Make sure to check it out. Now, let's take a look at our next story of the week, the Nobel Economic Sciences Prize. Now, this Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences is actually the only one not to have been in the original will of Alfred Nobel. And the reason why is because in the 1960s, Sveriges Riksbank, and forgive me for my Swedish pronunciation there, the Royal Bank of Sweden, they officially announced that they would be creating the next Nobel Prize. In the 1960s, a Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences was created, and now it has been awarded every year since the 1960s. So now, it was actually the only Nobel Prize that was not awarded by the time we'd filmed and uploaded the previous news of the week, where we announced all the other Nobel Prize winners. So I thought it would be fitting to mention who won the Nobel Economic Sciences Prize. And so the winners, the three winners, are David Card for his innovations to the field of labor economics, and to Joshua Angrist and to Guido W. Imbens for their work in causal relationship analysis. Now, these three have made some very influential contributions to the field of economic sciences in different ways. And so, all three earned their Nobel Prizes in economic sciences this year. So that's what's going on with the Nobel Prizes, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take a look at our next story of the week, which is the fact that the Scripps National Spelling Bee has officially decided that for the first time in 27 years since 1994, the Scripps National Spelling Bee will not be broadcast live on ESPN. Instead, it will be moving to two of Scripps' own channels, Ion Television and Bounce TV. Now, both of these are free to air, and the Scripps National Spelling Bee states that the move to Ion and Bounce was meant to make sure that the bee reaches the widest audience possible for 2022. But then again, ESPN is the premier sports network, and so with a change such as this, well, I mean, it's going to be a little interesting to see what happens to the National Spelling Bee, as it's not going to be hosted on ESPN anymore, but rather on Ion and Bounce. Now, our next story of the week actually is a little bit grimmer, and it is actually related to a mosque bombing. Now, you may know that just a week ago, there was actually a mosque bombing in northern Afghanistan in the city of Kunduz that left anywhere from 50 to over 100 people dead. Well, now another mosque bombing took place in, this time, the second largest city in Afghanistan, in Kandahar, and this one killed yet another 50 people. Now, this is exactly 1 week later. Both happened during Friday prayers. Both were in mosques that were Shia Islamic, and both were committed by the same Islamic extremist terrorist organization, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, Khorasan province. That's ISIS-KP. Now, ISIS-KP has long wished for some sort of awkward world caliphate, and they've always been attacking Shia Islamic mosques in particular. These two are no exception. But Shia Islamic, both of these mosque bombings occurred during Friday prayers, and well, these two might just be the first. There'll probably be many more of these to come, and given the fact that they both occurred exactly 1 week away from each other in the same setting, there's a good chance that ISIS-KP might go on some awkward weekly rampage of mosques all throughout Afghanistan. And since America and co. have withdrawn from the war in Afghanistan and thereby ended it, leaving the Taliban in control of the country, well, even though the Taliban and ISIS-KP are apparently worst enemies for some reason, they just so happen to probably not do much, given that a lot of it is also spent on enforcing their own incredibly just as insanely strict rules on everything, on what to do and what not to do, and the incredibly harsh punishments and deaths that have been caused as a result of not following any one of their rules, which restrict human rights and the freedom of speech and the press and of expression overall so much. And so, even though the Taliban may as well condemn all these attacks by ISIS-KP, they're not doing anything about their own incredibly heinous acts of terrorism that they themselves have committed over the past 25 to 30 years. So that's what's going on with the Kandahar mosque bombing, and that is what's going on in Afghanistan. And that is all of your news of the week for the week of October 10th to October 16th, 2021. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on another News of the Week. Goodbye.